Today, we are going to be working on multiplying positive and negative rational numbers. I know fractions are scary. That is okay. It actually is a lot easier to work with them than what you think it is right now. It's just a little line between two numbers, and the way that we work with those numbers is something that you've always known how to do. Not always, but definitely since the start of this class. By the end of today, you will know how to multiply positive and negative rational numbers. And that's going to be our learning target check. You want to write that down, and then at the end of today, when we do our closer, double check, were you able to do that? Can you check that off? I was able to multiply a positive and a negative rational number. So, when we're multiplying fractions, or multiplying rational numbers, what we do is we literally multiply the tops with the tops and bottoms with the bottoms. I would write that down on your side. Just multiply the top with the top, or just multiply tops, and multiply bottoms. So when we do that, we do 3 times 5, and we get 15, and 4 times 8, and we get 32. And our final answer is 15/32. Now, when we get to more complex problems, there's going to be a step 3, and that is simplify. And when we get to really complex problems, like with mixed numbers, we'll get into those later. So don't worry about that for right now. So our example in our workbook, or rather in our notebook, we have -8 times 6/7. Now in our warm-ups, we had a question. How do we write 8 as a rational number? And we found out that 8 is the same thing as 8 over 1, which makes our life really freaking simple. Skip that I said that last word. So, we have -8 over 1, and we're multiplying that by 6 over 7. Now, I chose to write those in parentheses, but that's okay. We can still write that as a multiplication symbol in between if you want. So we multiply our tops, and we get -8 times 6, and we get 48. So on top, that's going to be -48. And on our bottom, we have 7 times 1, which is just 7. So we have 48 over 7 as our final answer. Which is exactly what we wanted. Now, the one thing that we didn't do in that last problem is simplify. We always need to make sure we're doing that. So when we simplify this, we say, okay, if I do 6 times 7, I get 42. Now if I do 7 times 7, I get 49. So I can't use that one. So I'm going to have a 6 out front. And to get to 48, I do 48 minus 42, and I get 6 left over. So it's going to be 6/7. So that's -6 and 6/7. Now, earlier we said there was going to be a time when we'd have to work with multiplying mixed numbers. That time is now. While that's a little bit trickier than what we were doing before, you're going to find out it is much the same. We have 2 different ways of handling it. One, we convert to a improper fraction. And then carry on as normal. Our second way of doing it is treating that mixed number as an addition problem and then distributing the number that we were multiplying. So again, that's treat like an addition problem. And I'm going to be showing what that means to be doing it that way. And we're going to work this example in both ways. That way, whichever way you are most comfortable with, you can do from here on out. I'm going to work way number 1 in red and way number 2 in blue. So to mark that I'm going to do it in 2 different ways, I'm going to divide my paper in half, just so we know the 2 different ways that we're talking about. So in half, on the left side, let's work it the way that we've already seen multiple times, converting to an improper fraction. So we want to convert 5 1/3 to an improper fraction. And I said I was going to do that in blue. So 5 1/3 to improper. So to do that, we multiply 5 times 3, and that's what we're going to add to the top. So it's 3 times 5 plus 1 over 3. And that'll give us 16/3. So now that we have it as an improper fraction, we can do 2 times 5, or not 5, 16/3. And we just multiply like we did in the previous ones. 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1, and then we multiply our tops together, and we get 32 over 1 times 3, just 3. And now our last step is we have to work backwards and simplify this. So 30 goes into 32 10 times, so we're going to have 10, and that gives us a remainder of 2. So that's 10 2/3. And again, that was our simplify step. Now, if we treat this like an addition problem, this goes back to the other question that we had in our warm-up. For that question, we asked, how did we write a number called 5 1/3? 5 1/3 is actually 5 plus 1/3. So now to do this problem, we replace 5 1/3 with 5 plus 1/3. And I said I was going to do this in blue, so pretend this is blue. So we replace 5 1/3 with 5 plus 1/3. So that'll change our problem to 2 times 5 plus 1/3. And then we use our distributive property. So the 2 gets distributed to the 5 and to the 1/3. So then we end up with 10 plus 2 times 1/3, which is just 2/3. And when we do that, 10 plus 2/3 is the same thing as 10 2/3. What the second way does is it allows us to potentially avoid a lot of the problems that we run into with simplifying. When we simplify much larger numbers, it sometimes becomes hard to figure out what that remainder is going to be and how many times that number can go into it. Both ways will always work. It's just a matter of which way you are more comfortable working with. So now that we have a layout of how to try these problems, let's try a couple on our own. The first set of problems that you're going to try are example 2 in your notebook. For questions A and B, you want to try these on your own, multiplying the 2 fractions, 1/8 and 6/7, and then on the bottom we're going to be multiplying 2/3 and 9/2. The example that we're going to try after that is example 4. Joy completes 1/20 of her painting each day. How much of her painting does she complete in a 7-day work week? You want to solve these problems. I will give a 10-second pause, and then I will show the answers to each of these. So, teacher in the classroom, you gotta pause it here in a second, because nobody wants to know the spoilers. So, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have our answers for A and B. And here will be another 5-second pause, and I will show the answers to the second one. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Final solution. Hopefully you got all of those right. Our closer for the day is shown up on our Google Classroom site. Open it up and give it a try. Hopefully it works out well for you. Have a good day.